In this video, which is brought to you by Asioma Power Pedals, we're going to go head to head between the Giant Propel Advanced One, the Merida Reacto 6000 and the Winspace T1500, which will include 4 different speed tests, all on the same wheel tyre combination, being the Winspace Hyper carbon 50mm wheels with some Victoria coarse control 28mm clincher tyres. Now, for the purpose of this review, I'd like you to consider this the Tier 2 aero category. And when I say Tier 2, I'm talking specifically about the frame set. For example, with the Giant Propel Advanced One, this is their advanced composite frame with an alloy steerer versus their top of the range advanced SL composite frame with a carbon steerer. The Merida 6000, this is their lower spec CF3 carbon layer versus their top of the range CF5 carbon layer. And with the Winspace T1500, which is what we have on display today because the other 2 bikes are now gone, they have only this one option with the T1500. And as many of you who support the channel will know, that originally my intention was to compare this bike to the Tier 1 category, the top of the range aero bikes. Why was my intention originally to do that? Well, when you purchase a bike direct from China, as you do with the Winspace, mitigating the middleman, buying from a company where there's no huge overhead marketing costs, I felt like maybe there was potential that we could buy a frame for half the price to the Tier 1 aero frames that could compete at the same level. But after riding this bike for 2 to 3 months, I felt like, or speculated, that perhaps it is more aligned to the Tier 2 frame set aero category, and that is why over the past number of months I have invested a lot of time and energy into testing and reviewing these Tier 2 aero frame sets. So for this video today, let's split it into 5 parts. Part number 1, we'll discuss numbers including price and weight. Part number 2 is the geometry and design. Part number 3 are the speed test results. Number 4 are my riding experiences. And number 5, my pick of the bunch, wrapping up with my rating system. So number 1, weight and price. So all these 3 bikes that I've tested are roughly the same size, despite the sizing label being different and a little confusing, which we'll discuss very shortly. And I weighed each bike with my speed play pedals. So the Winspace with SRAM mechanical 1x and the 50mm hypers came in at just over 8 kilograms. The Giant with Ultegra mechanical and the SLR2 carbon 42mm front and 65mm rear wheels came in at 8.6 kilograms. And the Merida Reacto 6000 with Ultegra mechanical and some brick alloy Fulcrum wheels came in at just over 9 kilograms. But if we weighed all bikes with the same Hyper wheels, the Giant comes in at around 8.5 and the Merida comes in at around 8.7. And obviously there's different group sets and front ends and bits and pieces that are adding to the weight, but know that the Reacto CF3 frame set medium comes in at 1,635 grams and the Winspace T1500 for a similar size comes in at 1,530 grams. So the Winspace frame set is definitely lighter than the Reacto, and I would probably say, having a guess, it's probably lighter than the Giant Propel 2. In terms of price, the Merida Reacto 6000 complete bike comes in at $4,200 AUD, the Giant Propel comes in at $5,300 AUD, and the Winspace T1500 frame set, because you can't buy complete bikes, comes in at $2,000 AUD. And by the time you add wheels, group set, front end, bits and pieces to the Winspace, it's going to be around about that $5,000 AUD mark, which is where the Merida Reacto should really be if they put some decent wheels on it, which they should do. So really, give or take $500 AUD. These bikes are all around the $5,000 category, which is roughly $3,700 USD. Part number 2 is the geometry and design. So looking at the geometry between all bikes, the first thing I'd like to point out is they're all different sizes, but basically the same size. With the Merida sizing, they're a little bit bigger than normal. So I normally go a medium. I go a small in their sizing, and Winspace is the reverse. Their sizes are smaller than normal. So as mentioned, I normally go a medium, but I go a large in their size. Giant seems to be the only one that are getting it right. But some noticeable differences in geometry include less seat tube on the Winspace to accommodate a curved or sloping top tube. The wheelbase is longer on both the Merida and Winspace, providing a more planted riding sensation when descending at high speeds and tackling corners. The Merida has a shorter head tube, but that is to accommodate longer forks to enable up to 30mm tyre clearance, which the Winspace and the Giant don't have at 28mm. Thus, the stack doesn't really change too much on the Merida, and the Giant is shorter in the reach, perhaps better suited to those with a shorter torso. In terms of design, from afar, the Winspace T1500 and the Merida Reacto, particularly at the back end, look quite similar with the dropped seat stays, which is supposed to improve comfort and improve aerodynamics. But if you get up close and personal, and I measured this, the stays are almost 50mm lower on the Reacto, and the way the stays connect on the Winspace is definitely a feature that stands out, being their T-tail, which is said to strengthen the connection between the stays and the seat tube while compressing airflow, according to Winspace. The Winspace also has an unusual design feature in the rear, called their frog leg muscle chainstay, where the chainstays kind of flare out, something that I don't see on the Merida Reacto nor the Giant Propel, and something that I haven't really seen on many bikes, if any, before. Kind of like the polarizing front end on the Giant Propel. The final unique design call out is on the Giant Propel, which is the circular top tube. To me, this gives the Propel a softer riding sensation, enabling a little bit of flex through the top tube area, which is actually quite similar to an experience that I had with the Chapter 2 Rare, which also has a circular top tube, and arguably this circular top tube manages varying wind conditions with greater aerodynamics. Number 3, the speed tests. So I completed 4 different tests, all completed twice, and the day was selected for being a very low wind day. And the test was done on all bikes with the same wheel tyre combination. I also used, for my power output, these Asioma power pedals, which were fully calibrated separately on each bike using a very easy and intuitive app for calibration purposes, which also lets you know how much battery life you have left following the 50 hours you've got. And as today's video sponsor, I did want to thank Asioma for sending me these pedals through after I reached out to them, because I wanted to facilitate more bike tests on the channel, and I needed the same power source, which you can't really do with cranks. It's very hard to change cranks over. But it's very easy to change these Asioma power pedals over. And the reason why I reached out to Asioma is because not only within my coaching group, the Road Cycling Academy, I was getting a lot of good feedback from members using Asioma power, but also within the industry. For example, Jay Taylor from Taylor Cycles, who's appeared on the channel before, was also talking these pedals up. So that is why I reached out to Asioma, and they have proven to be a very good pedal system. For me, I love their ease of use and installation. Obviously, for my bike tests, Asioma also uses Bluetooth and ANT Plus connectivity, so it's easy to connect, and I've personally experienced no dropouts to date. By all accounts, the power reading is accurate without any sudden deviation, and I think we should all keep in mind that the reason why cranks for power used to win over pedals for so many years is because housing an electronic system inside a pedal, which tends to get bumped and knocked around a lot, would cause too much stress on the system. However, now with the electronic parts safely housed inside a bi-component resin block, according to Asioma, this pedal system can take a beating without losing reliability in the numbers. Our very own Aussie Shane Miller has performed some very detailed power number testing on these Asioma pedals. So if you want to check out that, I'll link to his video below along with the Asioma website. So these 4 segments for the speed test were as follows. We have segment 1, which is Gindia Drive, a 1.5 kilometer hill climb completed at 350 watts. Segment 2 is TT Like You Mean It, a 1.8 kilometer false flat decline at 400 watts. Segment 3, TT Like You Mean It in reverse with some extras at 2.15 kilometer, which is a false flat incline at 300 watts. And segment 4 is the Noosa Hill Descent, a 1.6 kilometer descent where I built up from 300 watts to 350 watts after completing segment 3 to a signpost and then stopped pedaling. And look, what I'm about to share with you, I can appreciate there's a lot of data there. So if you want to check it out for yourself, I'm going to provide a link below, which will also take you to the different Strava segments as well. But at a high level, some of my key points and observations are: the wind was literally non-existent for the Giant Propel. test, it slightly came into play blowing northwesterly direction for the Winspace, and then it was mostly present for the Merida, albeit very light, sub 10 km/h winds, and not something I personally noticed while riding, but no doubt having some impact. I'd say favourable for TT like you mean it, and non-favourable for TT like you mean it in reverse. However, the Merida Reacto 6000 seems to be the clear winner from these tests, pretty much taking out all segments external to the descent, where there was definitely some slight cross headwinds coming into play. What I perhaps found most interesting was the Merida taking out the hill climb and the false flat incline into a slight cross head, despite being the heaviest of the lot, which just goes to show that aerodynamic gains in the frame outweighs overall weight in most riding instances, obviously not up steep inclines. And look, I did suspect this outcome with the Merida, which takes us to point number 4, which is my riding experiences. So to me, the Merida Reacto 6000, which is pretty much the same frame set used by the pros, it's just a couple of 100 grams heavier, is the superior frame set. And I think that's to be expected. They're onto their 4th generation aero frame set. They were also early to the aero party way back in 2011. And product engineering, design, and the manufacturing process are all their strengths. Giant, on the other hand, are onto their 2nd generation Propel, which was last updated in 2017. And in that same year, 2017, Winspace came out with the T1500, which is yet to be updated. Now, in terms of speed, which I know is very important, I think we can make a fair assumption that the Merida Reacto 6000 frame set is probably the fastest, and with the Hyper wheels, it certainly feels the fastest too. With the Winspace, when it comes to speed, for whatever reason, which I'm going to try and explain a couple to you, I just can't shake this heavy riding sensation. Despite the fact that the frame set is the lightest, clearly from the speed test, the Winspace performs well, but when I'm riding it, particularly sub 35 km/h, it feels lumbering. That Winspace riding experience that I get, maybe it's because I'm 80 kilograms, which is about 176 pounds. Maybe it's because the roads are really harsh up here on the Sunshine Coast where I live. Maybe it's what I feel like is a bit of a confused back end with the T-tail and the frog leg chainstays trying to absorb the road, which it does well at times, but at other times it borderline feels lumbering. With the Giant Propel, on the other hand, it rides incredibly soft for an aggressive aero bike, in my opinion. I would personally say it's not as stiff and as aggressive as the Winspace and the Merida Reacto, but out of the saddle handling and cornering is on par, possibly due to the shorter wheelbase on the Giant. Some people have interestingly commented under the Giant Propel videos I've made in recent times that they've experienced speed wobbles at high speeds on the Propel. Personally, I've hit roughly 90 km/h on the Propel, and I haven't noticed any speed wobbles at all. In fact, all bikes descend really well, and I'm yet to die on the Winspace T1500, which some people were speculating when I first bought this bike direct from China. So if I was to sum up all 3 bikes, the Merida is the best overall race bike frame set, but a little on the heavy side, and it comes with disabling wheels. The Giant is surprisingly soft for an aggressive aero road bike, but make sure you change those Garvia tyres immediately. And the Winspace is stiff, it handles well, and it performs well at speed, but I feel from an overall riding experience, especially the lumbering sensation I discussed, it feels a little behind on the other 2 in terms of product engineering and design. It's certainly built well, and if you missed that video, we'll link it up there. But I'm looking forward to when we go to generation number 2 with the Winspace T1500. Part number 5 is my personal pick of the bunch. So you might be thinking now it's definitely going to be the Merida Reacto. I've been talking it up a fair bit in this video, but while it was a close call, I would actually take home the Giant Propel. Reason being, I really enjoyed that soft riding sensation, particularly on some of the harsher country roads we've got around here, and the shorter reach just worked a little bit better position-wise for my shorter torso. As a result, I was sad to see the bike go, but I need to make way for a new project coming at you soon. If you've gotten value out of this video today, if you could give it a like, I would greatly appreciate it. It helps the channel out. And before I share the rating systems, a few things to note. Number 1, I'm rating these bikes based off of the Tier 2 aero category. I don't use the number 7 because I've been told it's a cop-out. I'm rating the bikes as they come, or as the Winspace was built. And The Winspace has dipped out on practicality because you can't buy it from a local bike shop, and I think you'll struggle a little bit more on the resale versus the Giant and the Merida, and the Merida's dipped out on speed because of the crappy stock wheels that it comes with. I'll catch you all in the next video.
You and I, we go together like birds and the sky. From the moment that you caught my eye,